This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Hello everyone, I'm Andre Coelho, founder of Saffe. Just a second, because I will do a demo for you guys. So Saffe is a face recognition, mobile payment, and authentication solution. So how does it work? Saffe allows consumers to pay even naked. So talking about being naked here, actually it's just to get the picture that you don't need anything to pay. You don't need your phone, you don't need your credit card or plastic cards, you don't need your wallet. You go to a store without anything. So how does it work this? The consumer needs to download the app first time, then register his face, taking a first selfie, and then his payment methods in our wallet. Then he's good to go. He can leave his phone at home, he can leave his wallet at home, and go for a coffee shop, for example, who use one smartphone or a tablet, like Square, for example, as a POS. So in the moment of the transaction, imagine the seller will charge me for a coffee, so he inputs the value, then he clicks next. In this moment, he turns to the consumer or handles the device to the consumer. The consumer puts his PIN and then clicks next and takes a selfie. He has to smile here. So click pay. In this moment, the picture goes to our server, the payment information is processed by the processor, and the payment was approved. So that's it. That's what the consumer needs, nothing to pay, just a selfie and a smile. We leverage that with a proprietary technology built by our CTO, a PhD in Harvard, and it's based on deep learning, and we also have a proprietary fraud detection deep learning engine. So there are two proprietary engines running on our server. Because of our proprietary engine, we have two verticals in the company. One is payments that you just see, it's a proprietary product, and then we license our technology as API or SDK for authentication. I hope you like. I'm open for questions. Thanks a lot.
So I guess the obvious question to me is, what problem are you really solving? You okay? You okay?
Is that your medication? I think I had to work about it.
Just trying to think about what problem is it that you're really solving. And the reason why I'm asking is because with Apple Pay and all these mobile payment methods, we're still waiting for them to take over, to take off. And so credit cards still are used, cash still pretty heavily used. You're talking about bringing us to the next generation. It seems to me that sort of cash still works and credit cards still work. You're going to another generation. Whose problem is it really that you're trying to address?
I think there are many problems, but we can start with sport cases that you don't like to bring any wallet. But then we go for travel, for example, when comparing us to plastic card. If you lose your credit card in a travel, in a trip, then you take some days to receive a new one. So you're not safe. That's the name of the company. You need to be safe. When you talk about Apple Pay and Samsung, they have a good emulation, but that's to your smartphone. So you rely on internet and you rely on battery. So you're still not safe. So really, with the payment methods that you have, you're never going to travel without cash. You're never going to travel just with Apple Pay or this kind of things. So we believe in the future, you will never care about this anymore. That's not a problem. You don't have to care about having cash because you have a safe solution that is mobile-based. So it's easy to implement this in the base of merchants, in terms of acquiring merchants. And it's also very convenient for the consumer to feel always safe that you are your payment method. So you don't need to emulate your payment method in your smartphone, you emulate your payment method in your cell phone.
Yeah, but I think the problem though is not on the user side. I think the problem is on the other side, on the merchant side. The reason why we're not even having enough mobile payments is because the merchants don't have the technology, haven't been able to adopt it. So if they haven't been able to adopt Apple Pay, how is it they're going to be able to adopt Saffe?
I don't agree.
My suggestion would be to think about, to not be so broad. It's really hard to be a startup and to think about the whole world as your market. now if you told me there is a segment of the population, or there's an industry, or there's a group of people that I think have this very unique problem, and I'm gonna tackle this group first, I'm more likely to accept that than to say everybody and everywhere as a method of payment, this is going to be the solution of the future. Just
I'd like to say something that on the merchant side, we did, of course, we have been in this conference live in a prototype, in a pilot in Brazil and Europe. So we've been invested by Telefónica. Our biggest partner is Visa, the biggest payment company in the world. So we have a concept of card holder present that is very secure, and they believe it's the same security as card present. So what, in our view, merchants, they never choose to have electronic payments. That just made more expensive for them to receive payments. That was chosen by the banks to implement that and force them down to use electronic payments. And that's what we think, that the banks will be convinced that we have a cheaper solution for them, where you don't have to issue plastic cards, you don't have if we go to online payments, it's more secure in terms of fraud. So this is what we believe. We believe convincing the financial institutions to onboard with us and come together with us to implement this with major financial institutions in US, South America, and Europe, we could have the base of merchants that it's important for sure, as you said, to scale.
So to tag on to what Lister was saying, you describe payments, but I think the solution is really authentication. I think you need to be clear and say, look, we are plugging into this massive market, solve this specific problem, and we have a value add, which you brought in at the end, that I thought would be useful fraud. Did I get that right?
You're totally right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because authentication puts you in a category from an investor standpoint that is very different, I think, than payments. And, you know, they can make a judgment on that, and then there's different, that kind of drives business model discussion, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, all they see is lots of competition and huge names trying to get in, right? Capital intensive, right? So suggestion would be focus on the authentication part and how it's complementary versus competitive to some of these markets. The 100,000 asked, I mean, clearly you have a product because you showed us, that was good, I thought, kind of convinced where you are in the life cycle. If there's any usage also, I think that'd also be helpful to help describe that you're getting traction similar to what we talked about with Ryan.
Yeah. If I can talk a little bit about that. So the company was established in 2015 in UK. We received seed investment and acceleration from Telefónica in Europe, and we was in a program called Visa Europe Collab for implementation in the stadium. But after Visa acquisition, we had to bow down this because there was some synergy they had to do. We are back again with Visa Innovation Center, the model from Visa Inc. in London and Brazil. We have a live pilot in the biggest gas station franchise with Shell gas station in Brazil, which later we can scale for 6,000 stores. We have now on board of us a senior executive who was former CEO of Elavon Brazil and founder of VisaNet. So like I was telling before, the most important thing for us is partnering with financial institutions. Coming on the back, the first comment you did, authentication is something really important, and we have a world-class technology. But to enter the financial industry, the sales cycle for these guys, it's pretty hard. So you're not going to convince them coming with a solution that, okay, I have an authentication product, but you need to try. It's easier to come to them. We are comfortable to launch this as a payment product, and then in the issue side, you help us bringing this to the base that you have, offering this as an option for use that payment method. So that's the strategy we have for solving the chicken and egg problem, partnering with major institutions, because it's easy to imagine. The only banks that it's global, we would say it's Citi, HSBC, and Santander. But then you can have local banks that are huge. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Bradesco in Brazil, Barclays, or BBVA, some banks that retail locally. And those kinds of partnerships would make our solution grow and and scale really faster than the other place, and there's no conflict because we can have 3 different partners and they are not going to be conflict in terms of regions.
A couple comments. Yeah, I like the idea of what you're doing. It makes a lot of sense. I think it maybe would have been good in the pitch to mention, and you mentioned it in answering the question, the whole issue, especially of e-commerce purchases, and that how none of the card chip stuff addresses that whole market, right? And now your technology, as an authentication player, as a payment platform, has a whole different level of security around it. And I think just throwing that out there in your 2-minute pitch, just the e-commerce potential applications for it, I think is worth mentioning. This is very much an intellectual property play, and so tell me a little bit about, are there any patents around this, filed, issued? You know, how are you protecting this proprietary, these 2 engines that your team has built?
Yeah, just to comment first, you are totally right. The first comment you said about, actually I ran out of time today, I was a bit late starting the pitch actually, but it's very important to say the next step for payments is doing a product with a card scheme that we have already as a partner for 3D secure payments, which means online payments, and that's increased a lot the security for the process. It's the same system you have with Visa Verify now that sends you a token, but instead of the token you will receive a push and takes a selfie. And this pain is the biggest pain that the whole chain, the whole ecosystem of payments still have, frauds on the online payments. So this is one thing. The second thing, in terms of the proprietary technology, so face recognition with deep learning brought the accuracy and the flexibility of engine for face recognition to a next level. So this is in terms of taking pictures in the dark. We don't need any lights to authorize the payments. The old biometric points counting the distance of your eyes doesn't exist anymore, so we are able to detect black people, something that the old engines couldn't do it, and that was horrible. And there's also the accuracy of the engine that with deep learning came even higher than fingerprints, so we work with 99.8% of accuracy comparing to other standards in the market. And this is all proprietary, was built by Giovanni, and it belongs to the company now. We also filed a patent when I had the idea of paying without nothing with biometric authentication for mobile payments. This patent was filed back in 2014, and it's a PCT that then is valid in different places in the world. And we are now in the process with the support of Queen City FinTech and lawyers to file new patents on the codes of the face recognition engine and the fraud detection. The fraud detection, I'm sorry but this is the most unique thing. So other face recognition providers, they don't offer that, because what we have, Giovanni was one of the first researchers to publish papers and to bring this to a software. And we are able to detect if you show a printed picture, if you show a video to the screen, by shadows, reflecting, by interference between 2 screens, we are able to detect and say this is not a live picture.
Got time.
Just say one thing. So, what I like about your idea is how big it is. You know, you do clearly, if what you are doing ends up working well, you know, there's only one probably that works. And that is exactly what an investor is looking for, so that's a good thing. The question then becomes an issue of timing. It's an issue of finding, so that's the other thing that I would suggest you think about, help an investor think about the timing for a return on an investment. So if you can think about the whole process from start to end from an investor, it's always important, because most investors are dealing with funds that have a limited life. But you know, the idea is big.
Yeah.
Whether it succeeds or not, that's important, of course, but if you're going to win, you're going to win big. And that's good. That's important.
Yeah, One of the reasons we came to payments is because of the margins, and we believe we can with a bit of traction, offer a profitable company very soon. We also dilute the risk having two different verticals, which means if we have there are a lot of barriers, and we recognize that. So it's been very hard, but we already did a very good job. So what we are doing now is rolling out from the pilots, and the idea is to roll out in 3 different markets. So we also dilute the risk in terms of markets and partners, but in terms of product as well. And it doesn't cost in terms of focus or something like that. Providing APIs and SDK, we just need to focus on server. And then there is the payment product when we need to focus a lot on the product. That's it.
So when do you think you can launch a product? You already have a test.
Yeah,
right?
it's launched. It's launched in Brazil and European Apple iOS store. You can download the app, but you need an invitation. But it's launched. There are 2 pilots. One is a restaurant and 2 gas stations in Brazil. But actually, the end of this acceleration is the period that we will be rolling out this in UK, that we just was granted with a very important thing for the company from the financial authority, FCA. They are giving us something called Sandbox. 4,000 startups was applied. We were selected between 7 startups, and we have a payment license. So it's called SPI, the Small Payment Institution. It's like an MSP here. In Brazil, we are also rolling out this, because until now we've been using Stripe and PayPal. So in 3 months is the idea to roll out as a new format where we take some intermediaries out, and we have a more profitable and lower cost product in terms of fees. And we are ready actually to roll out. I think there's a question in the back also.
Well, one, I think you have a marketing. I remember being in college, it wasn't that long ago. A lot of people lose their phones and their debit cards going out. They have some different that did the same. So I think having as a supplemental payment option is the worst case is a great market. But I think also getting the chicken or the egg of merchants and users, and then also they have to be on Foursquare, correct? So you kind of have to get people to sign up for Foursquare, and then your platform. I think it could be great in the beginning in the sense of the initial Foursquare users, but it could be a potential bottleneck down the road. In that, I know a lot of people also don't have Foursquare from the privacy perspective, so it's kind of a catch too.
Yeah, you're totally right. We have in our strategy for solving this chicken and egg problem from the merchant side. From the consumer side, is more related to the issues and the telco that we have, like Telefonica, for acquiring customers to download and to register in our app. But from the merchant, there is a view that it's very important. So how they solve that back in times with POS machines and credit cards, plastic cards. So you do vertical. So a city like Charlotte is a very good example. With very few sales efforts, you can do the whole city merchants in 1 month. Okay, and this is one thing that. So, for example, we would distribute the app and invite people to download and register just when the city has already a base of merchants, so they don't feel the gap of having the solution and not using. So those kinds of verticals, we can also say, for example, for resorts, for airplane companies, and for stadiums, because then you have also verticals where people know exactly where they use that and for what reason.
Okay, we'll leave it right there. Thank you so much.